right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. And thank you for joining us today for a conversation with our alumni speaker, Jason Labat, as well as Evan Fraser, the creative director of Bonsai Media. Jason Labat is the founder of Bonsai Media, which is a full-service digital marketing agency in Seattle, and it's been ranked as one of the top marketing agencies in the region. Bonsai works with clients like Amazon and Samsung and others to create digital experiences to impress, engage, and ultimately convert. Jason graduated from our marketing program at Western in 2006. And as a couple of housekeeping items, I'll point out that all questions should be put in our Q&A function, but I would encourage you to use the chat function to chat amongst the attendees. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jason to talk about creating brands that customers will love.
Awesome, thank you, Ed. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe in these crazy and different times. So as Ed said, really our today's presentation is around creating a brand that customers love. And so my real goal for this presentation is, I've discovered this tool called customer journey mapping, used it in our own agency and business, Bonsai, but as well for our clients. And I've found that it really ties in a lot of different aspects of marketing. So whether you're working on a website or you're working on a sales material, being able to tie it all into a cohesive brand experience can be really powerful. And so with that, I'd like to start by getting your input. I don't know if we can do this with the chat, but is just to see what are some brands that you all love. Let's see if I can get someone to come up here. We've got a couple whoops in the chat room, but any brands that you guys love. So clothing, food, technology brands. Okay, so we got Nike.
Nike's here.
Yeah, Gibson.
A24, Patagonia.
Apple.
Nadia, give us a specific clothing brand that you love. Glossier, a couple of Glossiers, Leatherman. Girlfriend Collective. Oh, Gibson Clothing, okay.
GQ, all right.
Yeah, you guys can, yeah.
Awesome, so there's a number of these, and so of you guys who are naming, like for instance, Nike or Express or some of these brands, why do you love them? See if we can get a couple of whys in there as to why. So name the brand and one reason why you love them. So the style, the fashion, the fit, it kind of fits. Okay, also the price. What other reasons attribute to you loving a brand? So company culture, brand aesthetic, inclusive culture, the aesthetic. I want to look cool like the models. Yeah, right. Seeing real people behind the brands. Okay. So there's a lot of different reasons why we like and love the brands that we love. And so one question I want to pose to this is, what exactly is a brand? And if you guys can, I'll give you a minute just to throw some that into the chat here. Well, we'll give some time for some answers to come into the chat here, but there and Ed, if there are some that come here, so it's who you want to be and show people, right? The association that ensures with your company, the idea behind the product, the feel. Awesome. So these are really actually pretty spot on, and we're going to dive back into what exactly a brand is. And I just want to take a second, as Ed so wonderfully said, I'm, Jason, I'm a WWU grad, go Vikings. And I'm joined here with my creative director, Evan Fraser. And, we really work shoulder to shoulder with a lot of different brands. And so I just want to start off and tell you guys a little bit about us as an agency. And so, I graduated from Western in 2006, and, right amidst the Great Recession, which will draw some parallels to kind of what's going on right now. But, in 2009, I started Bonsai as a full service digital marketing agency. And we really grew because we had a tight set of core values. One of them for us is, better together. It's, you can have an SEO person, a developer, individually, they couldn't build a product as well as they could collectively. And the same goes true with our clients. We can't do the quality of work that we do without the relationships we have and the collaboration we have with our clients. The other is do dope shit. And I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, Ed, but people are inundated with thousands of marketing messages every day. And so how are you going to stand out and get noticed? And so we, a lot of times, are not only challenging ourselves, but also challenging our clients to really do and say things worth the world noticing. And then these next two really kind of tie in together: grow or die, take pride, and deliver. So, in a continually evolving world, your customer's journey is going to change, and so you need to change with it. Same with our skill sets, taking pride in not just our work, but our teams, our communities, and then delivering, right? So doing what you say you do when you say you do it. And so out of these drive some core philosophies. One of them, which makes sense, is communicate with impact. The second being to say less and convey more. If I expanded on that, it'd be counterproductive there. So the other is to make data-driven decision-making, measure twice and cut once, to anticipate and iterate. And I'm just going to quickly run through some of these, which have, we've been super blessed in that we've been able to work with big companies like Costco, Amazon's, Microsoft, Samsung. We built EMP's website and ticketing system, to working with like the Seattle Union Gospel Mission. And that's actually a really solid example that if we have time at the end, we can look at how looking at the customer journey was able to increase their donation revenue by 215% by really putting the donation, which is their core persona for their website, at the center of their brand, and then building the experience around them led to just a massive increase in their online donations. So, and then of course we've been super fortunate to win some awards, like Best Digital Marketing Agency in Seattle for 2020 and Top SEO Firm. So with that, and kind of how that plays into the work that we do. So back when I started out in 2009, we were building $2,000 websites. We were doing, small projects, and we found ourselves fitting into a very specific place. It was production work, and you needed a website to sell a widget or to talk about your services, and we found ourselves just saying, hey, look, there's got to be a better way to do this. We need to take into account the full story here. We feel like we're only addressing the customer acquisition piece of this equation, as opposed to all the other pieces that go with it, like through the entire buying cycle, which again we'll cover in more detail here. And so with that, today we're doing creative and branding solutions, from logo design to messaging to the whole works, as well as marketing from SEO. Most of our focus on marketing is digital SEO, online advertising, and the likes. as well as technology, whether it's content management systems or apps. So what I really want to hit on and what I want to bring it back to is the branding. And I think you guys really hit on what a brand is. So go Vikings. But your brand isn't what you say it is. It's what they say it is. And if we can, as brand managers, start to orient our mind around this idea to flip, what we want to communicate is more about what's received and then what's communicated. So we turn this paradigm upside down, and this is really what we talk to our clients about. And this is the goal of branding, is you want to build a business, you want to outmaneuver competitors, even disrupt industries. You're not happy to just satisfy customers. You want to delight them, engage them, empower them. You want to organize them into an army of advocates who will spread the word about your product, your service, or your company. And that's really where we're here to help our clients. And so, when we get to like what a brand is, and I really am impressed that you guys are digging deeper into what a brand is, because oftentimes we get people who call us and say, hey, we need some branding work done. And it's like, great, okay, what do you need? And they're like, oh, we just need a logo, or we just need a website, or we just need this one thing. And the reality is branding is not a logo. It's not messaging. It's not website. It's not a customer interaction, proposals, it's none of these things, and yet it's all of these things. And so what we really have found in our past 11 years doing this work is that branding is the accumulation of touch points or customer interactions that inform an impression, whether that impression is good or bad. And so, we don't love Nike because they sent us our shoes in a cool little box with a cool little note. We don't love them just because, LeBron James is sponsored, or, they have sexy models who are wearing their clothes. It's the entire brand story, and it's our experience with that brand and all those touch points that continually build upon and support and prop up this brand, this idea, this identity in our brain, so that when we're thinking about getting a pair of running shoes or tennis shoes or whatever pair of shoes or apparel it may be, Nike is, of course, one of the brands that comes to mind first. So, so that's really, kind of the setup for this talk, is that, if a brand is no singular thing, what tools can we use to engineer the brand experiences such that we're creating a brand that customers really love? So, and for a lot of you, as whether it's as a brand manager, as a CMO, as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, our invitation to you is to look at your business, to look at your product, to look at your service, and see if this tool of customer journey mapping can't be useful in kind of breaking it out and really looking at every customer interaction and how that builds or takes away from the brand you're trying to create. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Evan, who's going to dig into more of the dirty details of exactly what a customer journey map consists of.
Okay, Jason, sorry I dropped out. Is it me now?
Yep, handing it off to you.
1 second.
Yeah, no worries. Gotta love technology.
Are you see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. All right. So, to begin, let me start with an engagement that I had with a brand and kind of walk through those steps of what took place. So first, the initial point of contact. So us being a digital agency, I'm using the example of a online ad. So this is, the phase where I'm going from unaware to awareness of this brand. So saw the ad, usually I don't engage, but this one intrigued me. I engaged the ad, took me to the website. So this is where I start the learning process of this brand and who they are and what they offer. Now, the website was done well, and through that user flow that I was following, it helped me make a decision. So in my case, my decision was to go ahead and make a purchase. So I made the purchase. That product was delivered and had messaging that was associated with that delivery as well. From there, received your follow-up emails, different offerings that were specific for what I purchased and for existing customers to engage with. Along with one of those emails was an invitation to participate in an event. And in this case, it was an event where a pop-up store was going to happen. So I engaged that event, went to it, and after that, what I see is these retargeting ads where the brand is remaining in my conscious by showing up in my feeds. So now this was a success story. 5 years later, I'm still a very loyal customer. So, how did this all happen?
Hey, Evan.
Yeah.
What brand was that?
Soto.
Out of curiosity.
Yeah, Soto Apparel. They're an apparel company here in Seattle. Kind of athleisure. There's no brick and mortar, and that's why they will do these pop-up stores every once in a while. But love the brand, love their story, love their products. So anyway, so it was a success for me. And so let's go back and look at the details of why that happened. So the online ad, like I said, I don't usually get it, drawn into those, but this one, a strong visual, an engaging message, and it represented an appealing brand. So I became interested. I clicked on it. The website, well done, and the brand story was clear. They positioned themselves as industry leaders, and the testimonials reflected customer satisfaction. So at this stage, I'm gathering the information I need to learn about this brand and know what they represent and what they stand for. And so the user flow, again, website well done, was able to easily navigate through the site, gather the information I needed, and then clear indicators of where I was in the buying process. And then, that needed that immediate confirmation after I made that decision. And then the packaging and messaging. So a package arrived, and it was a custom branded package, well done, well designed. And then with that, with the product was a thank you letter. It was welcoming me to the brand, and it was hand signed by an employee of the company. So again, just a nice detail, a nice touch, a personal touch that, in my mind went a long way. The emails and offerings. So, it kept me updated on new products. It asked how I was enjoying the product that I purchased. I received offers for existing customers. And then, like I said, one of those was an invitation to this pop-up store. And it was, the way they did it was just well done. It was saying, do you want to engage with this event? I said, yes. And then I received a text the day of saying, in 2 hours, go to this location to view our pop-up store. So it was a creative store design. So it was a shipping container that they transformed into be a store, and it was well laid out, fully branded, and you're able to see these products in person. So, and it was an exclusive event for existing customers. So you felt like you're the inner circle of this brand. And then also just top level customer service, the people manning the shop, just answering any questions, helped me look for the products I was looking for. And then the retargeting ads. So again, just a way for a brand to remind me that they're there and to show me new stuff. And it was just, the consistent brand was always represented. And then, like I said, it kept that brand in my conscious. So, it's, when I think about that experience, it's the attention to the details. So, this successful partnership didn't just happen by chance. This company thought out each touch point, and with each touch point, they gained my trust and made me feel like I was part of their brand and in their family of customers. So this is where I think the separation happens between good brands and great brands. You know, a good brand can have a great website or a great advertisement or a great store, but the great brands, you know, think about all those touch points. And so, you know, some of those examples that were thrown out at the beginning, you know, Nike, you know, think about their store design. They have award-winning commercials, you know, just a good website, a good shopping experience, good products. You know, same with Patagonia, you know, good store design. They always find great locations. And, you know, from their products, even the catalog that comes in the mail, a great printed piece on nice paper, well laid out. And I think it's very clear for people that know Patagonia what their mission is about getting out there and explore the world, but also at the same time take care of this world. So I think, you know, Patagonia and REI are similar in that fashion, that I think people are very clear about that brand message and their mission. I think that's why brands like that set them apart to be, you know, great instead of just good. So with that, you know, what is a customer journey map? So in general terms, it's a visualization of an end-to-end customer experience. Now, there's key elements of a customer journey map. Now, depending on the industry or the type of business, you know, these elements may shift a little bit, but in general terms, they are pretty much the same. So first one being customer personas, the phases of the journey, the touch points, the customer's thoughts and actions, the pain points, and then customer's emotional state. So diving a little deeper, the customer persona. So you need to step back and put yourself in the customer's shoes. So like Jason was saying, it's not what a brand is just saying they are. You got to listen to what your customers are saying you are and think about what their needs are. And then when you're building out these custom maps, depending on the diversity and amount of personas, so, you know, a brand or a certain company could have 10 to 20 different personas. And so when you start to map it out, it might get pretty job down. So what you want to do is probably do a map per persona just to keep it clean.
Yeah, I mean, just to jump in there, Evan, I mean, if we're to use Nike as an example, and, you know, you use a track athlete or a wrestler, or, you know, who's buying those types of shoes versus, you know, maybe a hip hop dancer who's buying, you know, apparel, you know, they're very different buyers. One's buying the athletic shoe for a very specific use case. One is buying it because of the brand identity. And so the journey that each of those personas have, and the things that are important to them, the questions and concerns that they have, are going to be different, right? And so we first want to define who we want to attract, but then we want to actually engineer a path for them, a journey, such that they can be successful with the Nike brand in that case.
Yeah, that's great. So moving forward, so the phases of the journey. So knowing the goals of the personas, like Jason was just saying, map out the phases of the experience that leads to the end goal of the customer. So each phase typically ends with a decision that needs to be made by the customer. So the goal at the end of each phase is to help guide them to the next phase. Now, again, depending on the industry or the type of business, the phases may shift a bit, but your typical phases are unaware. So just someone's not aware of that company or that brand. Then you get into the awareness stage. So in my example, it was the display ad that was the changeover to the awareness. And then you have your consideration, where they're kind of learning about the brand, deciding if they want to be engaged with that brand. And then decision, be it a purchasing decision or just whatever type of engagement they seek out with that brand. And then you're going to end on kind of an ongoing or a post-experience phase. And so, you know, for us as an agency, even though our website project ends with a certain client, we are still engaging them after that is over to seek out any additional help that we can be as a service for them. Next element, so touch points. So again, back to my first example, a touch point is every time the customer comes in contact with your brand. So these touch points go beyond just the main mediums. So, it's not just a website, it's not just an advertisement, it's not just commercial. It could be them reading a review of the brand online. It could be a phone call with customer service with that company. It could be an email exchange with that company, an in-person meeting, etc. So it's every time, you are having a connection with that brand is considered a touch point. Customers' thoughts and actions. So in each phase and at each touch point, the questions and concerns of the customer should be identified. At the touch points, it should be clear what the next steps are, especially if a decision is required at that stage. So again, using Bonsai, our agency, as reference here, it's helping companies with their digital presence. What are they Googling? What questions are they wanting? And then what actions are taking place with that? And what are those questions before awareness, and then even at awareness when they're visiting the site? What are those questions? And then what are the responses from that company, from that brand to answer those questions? And then with that, so the pain points, these are issues that impact the customer's engagement in a negative way. It's also known as roadblocks. So this could be many things. It could be, the user flow of the website. It could be the timing and content of a follow-up email, but it's anything that impacts in a negative way that's gonna make a customer want to disengage their relationship with the brand. And so what you need to do is do your best to identify those and either adjust those pain points or do your best to remove those altogether.
Yeah, and if I could just pop in there, Evan, is like a great example could be like an insurance company. A pain point for them is going to be the forms that you have to fill out in order to become a customer. If they understand that that is a pain point and it's going to be likely a low point in their customer journey, the company is going to want to dedicate a lot of time and resources to simplifying that user experience, making it as easy as possible for that pain point to be overcome.
Yeah, great. And then customer's emotional state. So this is where we're talking about empathy mapping. So it's being aware of the customer's emotional state can help guide the type of content that should be available and what the next touch point should be. So if done well, this is a key element in a successful customer brand partnership. So moving forward, why do you do a customer journey map? Well, it gives insight to help a brand create a seamless experience with its customers. So quote, relationships are the only thing that matter in business and in life. But journey mapping will help a company think from the point of view of their customers. By factoring in each touch point, it helps build a relationship that goes beyond just that first awareness touch point. Next quote, I think a relationship is like a shark. It has to constantly move forward or it dies. So a successful journey map doesn't just end when the customer reaches their end goal. It should identify what's next and how the relationship continues to grow beyond the company, between the company and its customers. So like I was saying with our agency, at the end of a project, that's not the end of the engagement. We want to continue that partnership, as long as we can. And so brand should always be there, informing you of new stuff, being part of your life in a way. This quote, your customers don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So again, thinking back to a Patagonia or REI that really do well with this. And so empathy mapping is key to a successful and long-term partnership between a brand and its customers. The journey map needs to be an ever-changing document. It needs to adapt with further information gathering and to changes in customer behaviors and industry landscapes. So with that statement, let's talk about the current pandemic, as an example. So as you're seeing, it happened quickly, and the journey map needed to quickly adapt to the changing landscape. And so I think everyone is aware of what's kind of the two directions that brands and companies are taking right now. And so It's just an example. Now's the perfect time to buy. Buy, with low financing, et cetera, buy now. Now, the other approach that we're kind of seeing is we're in this together, stay safe, and we'll get through this. We're here for you. Now, so that first one, they're not really deviating away from their marketing initiatives. They're not making any changes to their messaging, to their customer journey, to the touch points. So whatever marketing initiatives they had prior to COVID-19, they made the decision not to make any changes there. Now, that other direction, they're factoring in the current state of society and focused on placing themselves alongside their customers. They're saying, we get it, times are tough. We're here, we're in this together. Now, so my personal opinion is that this approach will have a better ROI, and they're not asking for the customer to make a decision right now. Instead, it's kind of building upon the relationship between itself and the consumer. In my opinion, that people are going to remember those brands that kind of were with us and connected with us during this time. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying that all companies should just halt their marketing initiatives because of COVID-19, but I do think you need to think about changing your messaging or possibly offering tools to help out the consumers during this time. So to use an example, one of our clients, Gridiron, is a high-end condo building in downtown Seattle. And honestly, right now, their issue is social distancing. So they cannot do what they normally do, which is give in-person tours of their building, of the condos. So, what their solution is to offer a private virtual tour of their condos. And this isn't just a video tour of a condo. It's a broker that will grab an iPad and you set up a time and they will walk through the condo with you and answer your questions, and they can show you what you asked to see and whatnot. And so they are providing a tool to help the customer continue their purchasing decision. So for the people that are still looking to purchase a condo during this time, they have a tool now where they can continue that process. And so in turn, Gridiron can continue its marketing initiative and continue to engage their potential clients and provide them, with questions and answers. So I think they're doing a great job during this time. So with that, like I said before, and I have to drive this home, it's a truly successful customer journey map is ever changing. And even so, COVID-19 is an example where within weeks, successful brands quickly change messaging and whatnot. But then also in normal times, even for us as an agency, we read our reviews, we talk to our clients post projects, and we get their feedback, and we're constantly changing our own customer journey map. And we change our customer journey map, we tweak it probably after every project wraps, because we see things that we didn't think about before. And so with that, a quote, "Your most unhappy customers are your greatest source of learning." And so for successful journey mapping, brutal honesty about how your brand is perceived is a key requirement. By examining reviews and customer surveys, adjustments may need to happen to that customer journey. So, and with that, Jason, I throw it back to you.
Awesome. Nicely done. So we want to leave as much time as possible for some Q&A. And but before we do that, I want to take about 5 minutes here. Can you guys all see my pulse patient journey mapping here?
Yeah.
Cool. So, we've talked about why customer journey mapping is important. We've talked about, what are some of the key elements. But what I want to show you here is kind of where the rubber meets the road. And so what I'm going to show you here, this is, it's nicely designed. And if you think about it, this is a Bonsai asset that we used for a client. So obviously for one of our touch points, it's really important that whatever deliverable we hand to a client, that it be nice in presentation and reflect well on our design capabilities. But I'm also going to show you an example of one that's not pretty. And in fact, I really recommend just grabbing a napkin and starting to jot down the different touch points, you know, conducting some interviews, and starting to build your customer map out here. So again, we have our different phases. So this is the awareness, you know, you could say awareness, consideration, evaluation, purchase, post-purchase. For this is a heart institute, a hospital. So theirs is good, their journey's a little different. So it's, you know, awareness and recognition to testing, diagnosis, treatment, ongoing management. And when we look at all of these touch points, and then we start to look at it as a cyclical system that feeds into itself, we can see how when you know, we look at ongoing management, and when the customer's happy that, you know, in this case, we literally have saved their life, that it's a good time to get a net promoter score, and it's a good time to get a review, because that stuff's going to make its way back in for our next customer when they're considering a cardiologist or company to handle their heart surgery. You know, it's going to feed into itself. So looking at this, first section, again, awareness and recognition. I'm just going to run through one. So the person is aware that they have a symptom. There's shortness of breath, you know, whatever the case may be. They search what the symptom means, and maybe they learn that it's heart related, or they go straight to their general physician to say, hey, listen, I'm having some shortness of breath, not really sure what's going on. Who's going to refer them to a cardiologist, or in this case, Pulse Heart Institute. Or, you know, that person's going to say, like, man, I'm having shortness of breath. I'm going to do a search to find out, what does shortness of breath mean? What, you know, or maybe they're a little bit long, you know, further along in the path, and they're going to be looking for a cardiologist. So we're in essence, what you want to take away from this is we're mapping out the activities that the customer is going to take. Okay. And start simple, start with assumptions, and then work to validate your assumptions. The next thing, and again, you know, we're very digitally focused, so we like to use our keyword research tools to help inform the customer journey to understand how people are searching at different phases. So we'll look to see how many times people are looking for, what does shortness of breath mean, or you know, why do I have shortness of breath, or whatever the symptom may be, or heart condition symptoms, or cost of heart testing, cardiologist near me. So, you know, we want to start to do some research into how people are dealing with and looking for, in this case, again, a heart-related illness. And then we're going to look at questions and concerns. And this is really one of my favorite places. You know, Evan and I will sit in here and do a lot of customer interviews, and really try to understand the state of people. And it's, in this particular case, when there's a lot of unknowns, the questions are really pretty bleak and pretty powerful. So am I dying? What's wrong with me? Is this fixable? Where do I go from here? And so by understanding their mental and emotional state, we can bring that empathy into our design. We're not going to use harsh, contrasting colors. We're going to use, you know, a color palette that's going to be, you know, a little cooler, more sympathetic. We're going to use messaging and call to actions, and, you know, different things throughout the customer journey to, you know, to help be understanding to their mental and emotional state. We're further going to define, in this case, we define their physical. We don't typically define physical state when we do journey mapping, but because it's a heart surgeon, it makes sense. So, you know, we look at how their emotional and physical state is here. And then based on this, we're able to look at, you know, what are the things, in this case, a website, that are important at this stage of the journey, as well as what are our marketing initiatives that we want to focus on to drive more you know, in this case, top of funnel. So Google Ads, local SEO, reputation management, remarketing, then our conversion tactics. So once they come to the site, make a phone call, whatever it is, what path do we want to send them down? Because, you know, I see too many companies where they go straight to buy now. And actually, I'll use Seattle Union Gospel Mission as an example. So Seattle Union Gospel Mission, before we worked with them, you went to their site and it was donate now, donate now, donate now. Well, when we started to put the you know, the person donating at the center of their customer journey and their solution, we really determined that people want to learn what specifically UGM is doing to help with homelessness. Further, they want to see the impact that it's having in people's lives. And so we built out these really pretty cool, dynamic, engaging success stories of people whose lives have been changed. And literally, their online donation revenue increased by $1 million, which represented a 215% increase in donations, just with that one change, by really putting the person donating at the center of the experience and understanding what their questions and concerns and emotional state was and what they needed to be persuaded to actually bring out their wallet. And so that, I think, really speaks to the power of it. And so essentially we're running through each of these different phases, again, looking at the activities, looking at the online searches, looking at the questions and concerns. And again, that's kind of a pretty version of it, which is what we have to do as an agency. But I mean, you can start with whether it's Lucidchart, Visio, a napkin, piece of paper, doesn't matter. Just if somebody asks me, hey, Jason, I'm starting a company, what's the first thing I should do? Other than surrounding yourself with a great team and a great support structure, I would map out my ideal customer journey. And I would even map out a couple of my competitors' customer journey. I'd go through their journey and I'd see what they're doing well and what they're not doing well. Because building a great brand, like Evan said, it's in the details. It's every interaction is well thought out and planned for. It's, you know, when it's an afterthought, you know, and man, I purchased a ticket, I went to the fire festival, and guess what? They didn't have anything set up. You know, that's you know, obviously a fairly extreme example, but you know, it's all these touch points, and it's really understanding and putting your customer at the center of it. So, you know, this is really our, you know, it's had a huge impact on our business. It's been super valuable, and just in how I sell our services, by better understanding where my customer or prospect is at in the journey, I'm better able to walk them through the sales process, which has helped our agency grow. It's helped our clients, like I said, with Seattle Union Gospel Mission, and I think it's helped us grow as designers and marketers and as people. And so, you know, again, my goal is just to pass along a tool to you all, and hopefully it helps. And we wanted to leave as much time for some Q&A and you know, see if we can add any additional value.
Great. Well, with that, we'll start opening it up to questions. I've got a few questions to start things off here. The first question is, how do you balance creating content that people want and creating content that you feel the best about? An interesting question.
Yeah, so, you know, I think you have to remember why you're in business. And, you know, I mean, we're here to serve. And so if you're passionate about something else, then start a blog, join a new company. But I think, you know, as brand managers, our job is to create content that our target market, our personas, will find interesting. And if you're struggling with that, get creative. Because that's where I think marketing becomes really fun, especially social, where we can track how many interactions and shares and different things things are getting. But yeah, the balance, if anything, needs to be, in my opinion, fully shifted towards what the customer is interested in, unless we're literally trying to define a new industry, which brings a whole lot of other caveats to it.
Yeah. It sounds to me like you're talking about basically you got to eat your own dog food, right? So you've got to think about how you can put your client at the center of the experience, and that actually ties nicely with another question. I think this is really close. Should we post content that we know our customers and viewers love, but we personally aren't passionate about? This is more of a tactical take on that same question.
Yeah. Again, it may be brutal, but whatever you got to do to find that passion, light that fire, because as marketers, we are, as I see it, as business owners, as marketers, we are here to serve, nothing else. And our own interests need to come second to that of our customers and our prospects. And like you said, eat our own dog food, however you want to call it. But I mean, get excited about what you do. Find a way to get creative. I mean, we've been doing agency work for 11 years, and I think it's a little bit easier as an agency. We get different clients all the time, but building a website and talking about JavaScript and HTML, it gets old, trust me. And so we have to continually, push things and find ways to make us passionate about what it is we do.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And, something that I talk with the folks around here about is the importance of empathy as a marketer. It can't just be about what you care about. And you've got to be able to put yourself in the perspective of someone who cares about things very different from what you care about. So I think that's a great point.
Well, and if you want to be successful, right? If you want to be successful, focus on what the market wants. If you want to be interesting to yourself, write about what you're interested in. And I hate to be so blunt about it, but that's, it's our job. So.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting world out there, right? I mean, there are ways to find things that are interesting in everything.
Right. Sort of piggyback off of that, I think also, if you were only doing stuff for brands that you love and engage with, your job would be pretty easy. So if I were only marketing for, say, Nike or Apple, there's tons of great assets from those brands that I can pull from and messaging that I use. And so my job would be pretty easy. Now, for a brand or a company or an industry that I know nothing about, I challenge myself to learn about that company and that industry. And my goal that I set for myself is to get that brand and that company at the top of that said industry. So I think a way to help yourself be engaged is just challenge yourself to learn this new thing and learn this new company. And even though it's not sexy or exciting, challenge yourself to learn these new things and be a resource for this brand and this company to elevate them and push their brand to the next level. So just find those challenges. In my 20 plus years of working, I would say less than half of the brands I've worked on are ones that I truly care about. So I've had to adapt and make those challenges, personal challenges and personal goals to elevate those brands that I'm not truly, excited about.
Okay.
For sure.
Fair. Okay, so let's switch topics a little bit. You're just starting a business. What's the first thing you do?
Yeah, so I mean, I think number one is your support system. The people you surround yourself with, I think that's hands down the most important thing that you can do. Whether they're employees, whether they're lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers, whether they're your first clients, be extremely diligent about who you surround yourself with. And then, second is engineer your customer's experience. I swear if I would have had this little tool in my pocket back in 2009, I think it would have made business a lot easier. I think we would have, been able to grow a lot faster. I think there'd be a lot less friction at different points in our customer's journey. I think we could have had less headaches. So I would, and like I said, even if it's making 100% assumptions and just putting it on paper, I would at least get something as to what I thought the ideal journey could and should be. And then I would continually work to improve that journey such that it's best in class or best in my industry. Because I think that's really where, the difference between, the top 1% and the rest is massive in terms of profits. And so, if you want to be the best, focus on the best customer journey and continue to provide great service. And that's what I would do. Yeah,
that's great advice. I'm going to jump around here a little bit. Nadia, I'll ask for you, I guess. With the prevalence of Instagram influencers these days, do companies need to be incorporating them into their marketing journey?
Yeah, I would say the way that we try to look at everything is with a beginner's mindset. And so I don't try to make any assumptions about what's going to be good or not good for a company. What I will do is look at the customer journey, and if in my target market, social media influencers are a point of influence for my target market, then it's definitely something I'm going to consider. It's definitely something that, given the budget, I'll try. And it's definitely something that I will evaluate the results, whether it be in clicks or conversions or sales or conversations or whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish. It's kind of how I would look at it.
Great. What are your top podcast, book, article recommendations that other marketers might not have heard of and had recommended before?
Man, that is a really good. So it's actually none of these things, but it's a well, I mean, they have a digital. So it's .NET Magazine. That was really a game changer for me in the digital space, and really helped me elevate my world of possibilities in that regard. Now I'm just trying to think. I mean, there's 21 Immutable Laws of Branding, which I think a lot of people probably recommend that. Oh man, I'm freezing. Evan, you got any while I'm thinking of some?
Yeah, a fairly new one is Buyer's Market, BYERS Market. And I think it's fairly new, so I mean, it might be less than 10 episodes at this point, but he interviews the top people at YouTube or Facebook, just a bunch of different industries. And so it's, probably like an hour-long conversation with these people, and it's just great insight into everything, to the movie industry, to what people are doing on YouTube and whatnot. And it's just good insight into these different industries.
Right. I got a couple questions from Meg. What are some of the top tips you have for customer interviews to get to deep discovery? I love this question.
That is a really good question. So, I think when conducting customer interviews, it's always hard, especially as an agency, because we're kind of this intermediary. We're paid by the client. And so it creates an interesting dynamic in a couple of ways. One is, we're not the company. And so the customer, I think, sometimes feels more likely to, they just feel more free to give us real, authentic feedback on how they feel about the company. So sometimes I would say, you know, having a third party is a good idea. You know, and then I think a lot of times what I see be effective is you want to be specific in what it is you're hoping to get back from the customer, but making sure not to lead them. You know, if we're after a certain data point, that's fine. Let's get to that question without leading them, because a lot of times, I mean, you'll see a number of surveys where, you know, the line of questioning is leading towards a desired outcome, and it's really easy to do. I mean, I've structured a number of them, and where I've looked at them when I'm done, and I'm like, it's pretty obvious what I'm trying to get them to, what I want them to respond with. So being direct, but also leaving it open such that they can respond how they feel.
Great. And also from Meg, how do you determine a relevant and appropriate keep and grow strategy for your existing customers?
Keep and grow?
Yeah, it's a strategy to keep your existing customers and to grow them.
Yeah. So the question is then, what strategies do we employ to keep and to grow our clients?
Yeah, so she's saying get, keep, grow. She wants a get, keep, grow strategy.
Yeah, so
this sort of ties to something with customer retention that I was thinking about, so I like this.
Yeah, so I think, well, one is, you know, I think on the get part of it, the get part is the biggest unknown, because across a lot of industries, there's different ways that you can get, and the get changes. So like in the agency world, you know, I would say local SEO and those things were great. And now there's places like Clutch and The Manifest and expertise.com and all these specific niche specific sites that are relevant to the agency industry and Clutch. So, you know, paying attention to those. But what we really focus on is we do a lot of exploration. So we understand what our customer acquisition costs are on, say, social, on LinkedIn, on our SDR team, sales development rep teams. We understand what our acquisition costs are there. And so we're fine to go try a new channel or two or three to continually see what is our customer acquisition cost and what's the quality of leads that we're getting and then deals that we're closing. And then on the keep side of things, I really, you know, not to hit it over the head, but I think really looking at the customer journey. And like Evan said, at the end of each customer engagement, doing a post-mortem to understand what went well, what didn't go well, how can we improve the experience such that it's a better experience for the customer. Yeah. And then on the grow side, I would just say is conversations. You know, oftentimes people do not value the existing customer base that they have, and they just are continually focused on acquiring new customers when the cost of acquiring a customer is 10x what it is to grow an existing customer. All that existing customer needs is a little love, a little bit of time, a little bit of thought. You've already done the hard work. At that point, it's about growing it. So
great. Yeah. And you know, one thing that I might add into that is thinking about ways to allow your customers to participate in your brand. And that gets them vested and gets them rewarded as they go through the process. And you know, I got into business as a coffee guy. I used to own a chain of coffee houses, but you know, that was a great business for building brand participation, because everyone who came in got to participate in the construction of their own personal drink. They got to invest a little bit. You know, we would do reward systems over time, and so you know, they became more and more involved in that way. And so it was really easy to sort of you know, once you've got them, to sort of keep them hooked in. And so I think anything that you can do with your brand that keeps them engaged and participating is going to help. And I think that there's lots of neat new mechanisms to do that. And you know, some of the tech that Jason has shown me, I think has sort of opened my eyes to some new ways that you can get people to participate.
Coming soon.
I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, well,
It's cool stuff. Okay, well, that is all the time that we have, my friends. I really appreciate the great discussion. I really appreciate the time from the two of you. Great conversation. I just want to say a couple of words to close out. I want to make sure I thank the Western Washington University Alumni Association, and also the Student Marketing Association, who we love. They both sponsored this event. And I want to mention that you know, we've started, the Alumni Association has launched a We Connect for Western alumni and students to strengthen the relationship in the Western community and provide an online forum for networking, professional development, mentoring, job opportunities. So you can join this at weconnect.wwu.edu. And this recording, the recording of this webinar and any additional resources will also make available through the Alumni Association website within the next week. And also, very important, please remember that next week, Thursday, the 28th, is Give Day. And you can support the students in the Student Marketing Association and in the marketing program through the link that I am about to post in the conversation thread. So I hope to hear from you all then. And until next time, thanks everybody. Thanks for coming. We'll see you around.
Thanks for having us.
Bye-bye.